I don't want to be the only Black person in a room anymore. I don't want to hear all of you make weird comments about cultural or Black things, or my hair looks different than it did last week, or, you know, the surprises, like people being surprised about my personal life all the time. It's like, what? I do normal people things. I'm not sure what's so surprising. Or when I first started this job, I had a coworker that was always like, well, can you do that? And it's like, I'm not sure why I would work here, why I would be hired here if I couldn't do that. So I just don't offer that man help anymore for anything, like any kind of support. I just stopped offering my support because it was always met with like a question or a hesitation or some kind of like, wait, what? Really? You? And it's like, hey, I don't know if it's like because you think I'm 12 or because I lied on my resume to get a job that I like I'm not sure why I would lie on my resume to work here in this very obscure specific place. And that's pretty much how Black Humboldt started. Like, because I was always feeling ostracized in spaces, always looking for like, who can I just be like, girl, you see that? Or like, did you hear that? Like, is it me?
Right.
And Deanna, who's the woman I started Black Humboldt with, I met her at a hip hop class. There was a Black woman that would teach a hip hop class at the gym. And I literally joined this expensive ass gym just to go to this hip hop class because I was like, there's Black people there, I have to go. And because ready before that hip hop class, actually, there was a samba drum and dance class. I saw the flyer. I was like, ooh, catch me, I'm going. I need something, anything, I'm going. Not one Black person in the whole place. Drummer, lead, dancer, nothing. So I'm like, why are we doing a samba class?
Wow.
With these white folk? And I was like, and then in my head, I'm like, oh, maybe you're a person of color, you know, you just less melanated. Like, you could totally, no, that wasn't the case. And I just was like, this is weird, I'm leaving. And then I found out about the hip hop class and I went, and it was church. And I was like, this Black woman is my friend now. So I just went up there and was like, hey, what's up? I'm Mo. I'm new in town. And now I actually have this great, beautiful bond with this woman. But after the class, she was like, I like to sit in the sauna. Do you want to join me? And I was like, sure. So I'll go. Of course. Black woman friend. Here we go. And I met Gianna in the sauna. And it was like, we all just started talking. And that was it. And maybe a month after I met Dee, she was like, where do the Black people be? And I was like, girl, nowhere. Here we are. She was like, we gotta do something. Yeah, I was like, it's us, we're here. And she was like, we have to do something. And I was like, yeah. She was like, do you want to like throw a dinner party and we'll just invite Black people, like just anyone you see on the street? And I was like, okay. And she was like, okay, we're gonna, because there's a Barbados restaurant. So she was like, we're gonna meet there. And she was like, we'll each throw down like $25 so that there's like, you know, an incentive to come. And I'm just gonna chase down Black people in the street and like give them my number. And I was like, okay, I'll show up. And that was like, that was it. And that was like the first Black Humboldt meeting. And we were like, you know what, there's gotta be like an ally in this community that will give us their space and like let us convene in their space exclusively without them. And this wonderful white lady was like, yep, you have the keys to my bookshop. And we were like, join us, Jen. And she's like, no, like, I can't. I know the space isn't for me. And eventually we were like, well, you just come out here and like be a part of us hanging out, because at least you get it.
Right.
Like, there was an explosion of people being like, I don't understand what exclusive space is. I don't understand why it's necessary. You're actually being segregationist by creating these spaces. I actually got into a very heated conversation on the local access station in an interview where this man could not fathom what it meant to be excluded from a space, because he was a middle-aged white man. Every space in the world is for him. Right. You know what I mean? And I explained it in so many ways where I was like, if you're a cat, you don't want to walk down an alley by yourself that's full of dogs. Right. Right? You want to walk down the alley with the cats. He's like, okay, I don't get it. And then finally, at the end of the interview, he's like, okay, I get it. So like the white man is the boss, and the exclusive space is the union meeting. And obviously you don't want the boss in the union meeting because the boss is mistreating the workers. And I'm like,
that is a really odd way of describing it. I'm like,
okay, sir, I'm sorry that these are the only means that you can understand a safe space is right. to bring harm and trauma into it.
But it's like, like that thought of the only way that you can think about space is through a capitalistic and patriarchal, very white lens.
Exactly.
That harm itself and like your cultural lens, that right there is like the harm of you not even knowing that there's more, that there's things that exist outside.
Yeah. Or the calm collective thought process that it's normal for a boss to treat its workers in a way that they are creating groups on the side secretly to talk about the boss.
So that,
like nonchalant.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, wow, so you're just gonna like normalize that the boss is like abusive and that the workers like need to like create a safe space, but you can't realize how that's related to how white folks treat black folks. Like I'm so confused.
It's so
exactly wild. And so many of these spaces I have to just, usually I take a deep breath and think of the greater good, right? Where it's like, in my process of navigating these white spaces, I'm helping to make more space for more Black and brown, young, queer people to be in these spaces, right? But sometimes I'm like, this ain't all it's cracked up to be. Like, this shit gets hard. like I said about this Human Rights Commission, it's like, I joined a Human Rights Commission because I'm passionate about human rights, right? And I was like, this is how you make change, like through policy, through these systems. But as I'm learning about these systems, I'm like, yo, these are all performative systems. They're actually not put here to help anybody. They're supposed to be this like community lens aspect and like accessibility to these meetings. But I'm like, the only people that have access to these spaces are the white majority, quite frankly. Like, and I stay talking with another Black man that's on the commission where we're like, I don't know if this is it for us. We might have to go to street activism, like, get out of these spaces that they were not ready for us to be in.
Yeah.
I find myself, I get yelled at every week because I'll check in and call in on somebody real quick. This woman was talking about the chat box is a accessibility point for some people, typing in the chat instead of using their voice. Mm-hmm. And a community member actually chimed in and was like, yes, I have speech issues, so this is actually a beautiful tool and I would like to keep it. And one of our commissioners was like, if you have a disability, you might just have to get creative. And I was just like, oh no. I had to like, you're supposed to like speak in, I don't even know. I went black, I saw red. I was like, excuse me, no. We don't tell anybody that has accessibility issues to get creative unless you're gonna go to their house and get, like, no.
You're just gonna have to get real creative and figure out a way to do it. I think I saw a post somewhere that was like talking about how like the way that ableism works, and they were saying how, they were like, yeah, we realized that it was like, an example. It was like, yeah, we realized you're in a wheelchair, and we thought that we could just bring the whole team out to the staircase and just cheer you on and just be like, you can do it. We believe you can get up this staircase. And it's like, that's really how they be treating people with disabilities or access issues. It's like, we believe you can figure it out and get creative, and we're just gonna cheer you on and tell you how much we believe in you and give you all the good energy. And we know you find a way to get up those stairs in your wheelchair.
Yo,
it's like, no, bro.
This stuff is like, sometimes I just laugh because it's like, it's so baffling.
It's illogical.
It's like, that I'm just like, I'm literally like this.
I laugh out of like confusion. Like my brain's confused. So I'm like,
But it's just like, it's literally a disease. That's why I believe it's like when King and I talk about the disease of white supremacy, it's like, it's literally your mind is so diseased that you are in a delusion that you truly believe that bosses should treat people terribly, that there are bosses, that you should boss somebody around, that you have ownership over somebody.
That you being a boss gives you the right to then, however you see.
In the delusion, the delusion is so strong that it'll have people out here, and it's like even spiritual bypassing. Like, I believe in all humans, like that I believe in all humans, so I'm not going to acknowledge structures, like racist structures that are built to like obliterate people.
Yeah.
So it's like, but we're all great and having this wonderful spiritual moment. And I'm just like, the disease that's in the delusion, it's like, you're sick, your mind is sick. And it's not even like I'm saying you're like, I don't even know how to describe it.
Not like naming that they're a sick person,
right?
But saying that.
No, I agree. Like an
illness of not being able to see what is reality, and then you have a different idea of what reality is in your.
Or like how reality changes per every perspective ever, but like not even beginning to think about anything outside of your own.
Right.
And that's what this workshop is about, actually. And it uses a theater technique to make tableaus. So we're actually like creating scenarios and putting people into them. And
hold on, can we pause real quick for a tableau, for people who don't know what a tableau is?
Right.
Can we
right. How would I describe a tableau? A frozen frame of a scene.
Beautifully done. Yeah. Beautifully done.
And I be watching these people in this workshop, and I think it frames the idea right. And I want it's for white people that identify as white. And I would also say it's for people that are struggling with defensiveness. We don't like market it that way, but because we talk about our culture as a whole, how America has obtained this structure and these ideas since slavery, through policing, redlining, Jim Crow laws, whatever, that they've slowly morphed into this white supremacy culture, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so easy, or it's not so easy, but it's easier for people to put the blame on who taught them how to exist rather than how they exist. And so I think that opens this up to a lot of people. And then like a lot of people just be having that aha moment in a tableau.
Yes.
And it's like something that was doing in person, but actually online has given us this special area because we're able to take a picture of the tableau and then step out of it. So a lot of the time people will be like, oh man, I didn't even like really realize I was like doing that with my face, but like this is what I'm getting from this image, and like fuck, that's not okay. And it's we always try to take examples of times that you've used white supremacy culture against a person of color. And so, things like perfectionism, worship of the written word, timelines, deadlines, hierarchical positions in offices, workspaces are like some of the craziest white supremacy culture ever. Like almost everyone is like, well, this one time at work, and it's like, I knew you were going to say that.
Yes.
I knew it. And then another workshop we do is all about power dynamics. So we take and give power to people, and it's crazy how people relate to wanting power and being willing to misuse it versus being powerless. Like, and it's funny because people will come, or not funny, but people will come to the workshop and be able to list 1,000,000 times that they felt powerless and how shitty it was, but then always jump at the opportunity to misuse power when it's for them. So we play games and we do all these like theater activities, and people really just be forgetting, and their subconscious comes and plays. And so they'll run wild with the power. They're like, nope, you can't talk. You only get 3 words.
Yes.
Nope, you can't do this. And then, and it's like, just, it's interesting though, because I'll see people in these workshops, and then when I see them in the community, I'm always like, oh, how do I navigate with you? Because people showing me you're ugly. Yeah.
You know what's so interesting? Like, also, like, well, first of all, that's so
amazing.
Dope. It's like amazing.
I want to ask you, those are the workshops.
You guys should come, because it's online and free for BIPOC, because we're always trying to get feedback.
That sounds amazing. So these are workshops you're doing with Black Humble or with your with your business?
No, it's called The Whiteness Within. I'm pretty sure it's morphing into a thing called Open Art, which is a friend of mine who is an arts educator. She's creating this, but she built the workshop with the help of another nonprofit called Cooperation Humboldt that does like capitalism education and training, and worker-owned cooperatives. Like, they teach people how to, Kinga. And they like give away gardens, and like they're all about like anti-capitalism stuff. And that's why I'm with y'all.
That's super cool.
I wanted to sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to say also Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire.
Yes.
My R's are tough. It's like something that I imagine maybe this person has because it intersects. It feels like it intersects in that way.
Yeah. So all of us have had some dealing with like theater of the oppressed training, which is Paulo Freire, and just theater in general. And then our like community learners, where social justice has always kind of been a theme, and then theater of the oppressed was a big thing, and then just being a part of this community, and being like, I see these gaps that people don't want to really address,
right?
And all the organizers and facilitators are actually from like different sectors. So the woman who got me involved, I know her from like the schools and education. And then I would say I work for a nonprofit, and then we have another woman who's like a stage performer. She's this huge drag king in our community. So we all and she's like a dance teacher. So we all just kind of have these different backgrounds, but similar things happen. And it's like, that's really crazy. So we're like a little crew. And Black Humboldt does not do any racial equity. Nothing. We don't do anything for white people.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things. We're not here to teach people. We're not relearning nothing. We do Juneteenth every year. That's community wide. We usually do a Black art show that's community wide, but everything we focus on is Black joy, Black resources. Like, people hit us up all the time and they're like, we're looking for equity training, and we just send them to other people that we don't even bother.
I love like even you talking about the concentration on just like Black joy, and I'm gonna add like healing, just the emphasis on we gonna focus on what we need to do, and we're gonna have an emphasis on that, and we're okay with that. Like I love that. And I was also thinking about artistry. When we say artistry and tenderness, work we do with Counterculture Educator, I feel like people can't imagine that yet, but when we talk about artistry and tenderness, the artistry part of how you can discover so many things about people through artistry, like power dynamics. When you give somebody a game and you see the form that it takes, just by watching how it plays out in front of itself, and the lessons that can be learned in that moment. And so when people say, I don't get the artistry point, there's so many things that can exist through artistry, and how to approach that, and then being tender about that. There's so many ways to be tender, and a tenderness point, for even the thought of a tenderness point, is like, I'm gonna tell you about what it really is. That's tenderness to me. Like, to say, I need you to know that this is a delusion. This is an actual delusion.
But it's also, I think it's a great example too, when you talked about the tableaus and then being able to show back the image, and for people to be able to see that on themselves. It's like, I'm not just going to sit here and tell you what it is. I'm going to give you an opportunity to experience it and then identify it in yourself. You know?
Yeah, there's probably still so many layers of revelation that we don't even hear. You know, it's a vulnerable space, and it's really hard for anyone to say, I submitted to or committed racist acts, you know, even if it was unbeknownst to myself, you know what I mean? So I like to think there's a lot more reflection happening in those spaces. And I like what you said about the artistry, D. I think it's like, people think, you say like, oh, we're doing this art space learning, people think they're gonna go to a room and draw a picture.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, being emotionally involved is an art form in itself. Being vulnerable, putting yourself in different scenarios, or role playing, like so many things. And I think it's really important too to get adults especially playing again. You know, it's like so important, and it activates so many things in our brains for consumption and learning opportunities and your comfort level. Like, the minute you could like go to a meeting, everyone's weird, doesn't want to like check in, you know, and they're like, then you do some funny icebreaker and everyone's like, ha ha, we're best friends now, let's be vulnerable together.
That's exactly how it is.
So I'm doing a teacher development right now that's all around like white supremacy and stuff, and I was like, we did a meeting and they were like, oh my god, that was so much fun, and I was like, oh yeah, we're just gonna like play games and like interact with each other, like, but you're learning lots of things. I was like, it's a trick.
Yeah. And the relatability, I mean, you see kids, they play and they have a good time, and they make friends with just anybody and can relate to just anybody, because there's a certain amount of, you know, your guard comes down and you're interacting with each other, you're having a time, you're laughing. And I think that those things that have been sucked out of our day to day, and like when you talk about workspaces, how toxic workspaces can be, because that's deemed unprofessional in so many cases, you know. And so you're not supposed to laugh, you're not supposed to have a good time, you're not supposed to share, you know, what your favorite part of your weekend was with your coworker, and be able to like go off and talk about the barbecue, whatever. Like those are the kinds of things that allow us to be in community with each other, and actually being in community with each other and interacting and relating allows us to get work done more effectively. And
like the workspace where everyone can be themselves is lit. Like when we get interviewed for Black Humboldt, we always talk about like the mask and how you get to the Black Humboldt event and you take your mask off. But it's like, I shouldn't have to wear the fucking mask all day. Like I didn't do anything. You guys have just decided that so many attributes about myself are deemed unprofessional, and like, who even made that decision? And I actually caught myself, I was doing a workshop, and one of my favorite like ism explainer on YouTube is just this like young Black man, and he makes these dope analogies, but he swears while he's teaching. And so I like went to this workshop. These people paid me to come lead the workshop. So technically I'm the boss, right? And I showed up and I was like, is it okay if I show this video? And then I even like caught myself and was like, actually, you know what? I've already decided that this video is what I want to show, because it gets the point across in a good, light manner. And I'm not even sure why I'm checking in, because I don't know why I have it stuck in my head that this is what's unprofessional. Like
right.
a young Black man dressed casually who says shit.
Right.
Yes.
Like,
right.
Yep. Like that, yo,
Right.
you're saying the
Yeah.
things that like often I'm like, yo, what is this even? The questioning, like the beginning to get out of the disease, like, you know, of like,
yeah,
I'm not going to be in that delusion. Like, how do we begin to remember
yeah,
like, where we come from in essence, you know?
exactly.
I think a lot of it has to do too with like what you just said, Monique, is when you have to stop yourself and check yourself and be like, how much am I actually buying into this culture in this moment, to the point where I'm just submitting and letting it happen, and letting somebody else to decide whether or not that's professional for me. I really do think it has so much to do with us each individually asking ourselves, what does professional mean to me? And how do I show up in that way? So that way I don't have to question whether or not I'm being professional. And if somebody else says, oh, well, you're not being professional, like I'm clear on how, well, my definition might just be different from yours.
I think I'm just throwing the word away entirely.
Yes.
I honestly,
like, I think that's where I'm at with it, where it's kind of like this was created for people not to fit the box, for an excuse not to hire them, right? So it's like,
yes,
actually, I'm just going to eliminate that.
Yeah.
We no longer work in professional settings.
Right.
Yes, yo, and the thought of even.
But
I'm
then
sorry,
I think
I'm so overwhelmed because I'm so excited.
But I think it does also bring into the conversation, like, what is workplace, like, what is the workplace culture that we want to be in, right? Because I think then you tie professionalism to, you know, it's also often tied to profanity, and then also like sexual harassment and how we're treating each other. So I do think that there's a certain amount of like establishing a culture for the workplace, how we are different. We do act differently in a workplace than we do on the street. The same way that like I like to use that when I'm talking to young people and they're like, I don't understand why I can't be like this or can't be like that at school. And it's like, it's not that you can't be like this or can't be like that, but how do we create
different?
In which we can come in and we can focus, we can get work done, and everyone can feel comfortable here enough to like do what they need to do, and then we can go off and be in our own separate communities or groups and do whatever you need to do in those spaces. So I think that's also a part of the conversation.
I was even thinking about when we talk just relationship building in general, what kind of relationships do you want to be in, and where you never have to wear a mask, like you were saying, but you can, I think the word delineate between workspace and home. But also, what if you just honored people's humanity everywhere you went?
Mm-hmm.
And so then even if you were in a workspace,
mm-hmm.
you were like, oh, you know, you're like, oh, my bad.
That's not
you
kind,
know, or like, that's not
respectful.
kind, or, oh, I hear what you're saying. Let's talk about it. Or, you know what I'm saying? And being able to be in a space where you're just like, I don't need to shift anything.
Absolutely.
Right. And also part of being about that space. And that's how, when I started thinking about how do I want to speak? How do I want to be? Because when we started walking into Counterculture Educator, I was like, I can be whoever the fuck I want to be. Who is that?
Right.
Who is that?
Right.
And I had to start thinking about like, who am I? Like, what do
I feel like I recently like found my voice, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like when I was younger, it was like super like, I don't mess my words up. I have a big vocabulary. I don't speak slang. And then I grew up and I was like, girl, you're dyslexic and words are hard for you. And half the time I'm probably going to sound like I'm not a English major. Like for sure. But that doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. Or just because decide to describe it in more simple terms also does not mean I don't know what I'm talking about.
And whose English is this?
I have the exact same experience, and I feel like so often I'm undervalued or silenced or just not acknowledged in the space because I'm not saying things with the big fancy words or the jargon, or, you know, I'll be sitting here like, what's the word?
Yeah.
That earlier in the video, and I'm, you know, trying to figure out what it is that I have to say, but it's not because I don't have intelligence and I don't know what, you know, I'm talking about. It just means that I have different accessibility issues or different abilities. And I just, I think it's
all different for everyone. And I'm always just like, the same thing, like, ESL students or English is someone's second language. We're so quick to be like, oh, you don't know nothing. And it's like, actually, you know a whole nother language I don't know.
Yeah.
Yo, there are people, when I would walk into the schools,
and then when you start
when I would walk into the schools and they would say, like, the way the adults, the staff would treat, and one of the things that I would walk in doing culture and climate work, I would specifically walk in like I was just off the street, because that's how I dress, right? But also I want to see how you treat me in real life. I'm dark skinned, I'm in a femme body. I want to see how you treat me walking in without any professional attire on, and people would treat me like shit. So I knew that,
like, you're here to teach a class?
Exactly. I knew any person in that building, it would tell me right off rip, I know that the culture is fucked up here. But besides the fact that you're in an institution, you're already enacting these messed up cultures. But the thought around English language learners, the way people would treat them, like, I'm like, these people, like, how could you say that someone who knows 2 or 3 different languages?
Exactly.
Like, how could you possibly?
But then the moment that you yourself start to learn another language, I would hope, at least for most people, because for me, it's been so humbling anytime I'm trying to learn another language. You start to understand, especially the deeper you get into the language, where you're starting to use it with people and in interactions, you start to really have that experience of like, I know what to say. I know what I'm trying to say. I'm smart. I have knowledge.
But I'm frustrated and I'm having issues. Yeah.
Language. Like, I'm just trying to figure out this new language. It has nothing to do with who I am and how intelligent I am. I'm learning a whole new culture and a whole new language. And the older you are, the harder it gets.
Exactly. And it's not an easy feat at all, especially, and then think about being 6 years old, where you're also trying to learn emotional intelligence. You might have breakdowns in your first language. Like, I'm like, how can we even begin? Like, and that's where you're like, this is a disease. Because how can you not notice the humanity in people through their struggles and then contribute to it? That's what kills me the most, where I'm like,
it's wild.
Or working in schools all the time and having been, a student that gets in trouble, or a student that's too loud, or, a student with any behavioral issues that weren't really behavioral issues, let's be real. And I was like a very smart student,
right?
But being that tokenized as that student and then going into a school, you start to recognize that a lot of the kids that have behavioral issues are feeding into the things they hear their teachers say about them, or feeding into the things that they overhear the teacher talking to their parent, or I've heard, just the way I've heard teachers describe students, it's like, no shit, they treat you like this.
Right.
Look at how you treat them.
Right.
Yeah.
Still stuck in the concept that we can't treat our students as equals, or as, adults, or not adults, but like just a human in general. Like,
right.
There's
there's the whole other topic of just the way that schools are set up and the educational system is set up, and that we actually expect kids to be able to successfully go through it when they're asked to do things in a way that's like goes against their nature, like sit in chairs all day, or stare at screens, or fill out pieces of paper, and their intelligence to be measured.
Take this standardized test, even though we did not give you textbooks all year long.
How many of us, I mean, I know for myself, like how many times I got in trouble or didn't get along with my teachers or got poor grades simply because my needs were not being addressed, and I was not put in an environment in which I could actually learn, and the people around me were distracting, and all the kids who had all the things that were going on with them that nobody even checked in about, like we just pulled each other under.
Just Odin, he can't sit still to save his life, and if he wasn't going to the charter school that he goes to, I definitely would have got the your kid has ADHD, your kid has ADD conversation, which, like, I don't believe in any of those things. I'm like, children aren't supposed to sit still and focus, but they've adapted. Like, he has done well at that school. They have wiggle chairs, they have other options to sitting when you're doing your work, and and the teacher he had in kindergarten and first grade was this amazing woman who was like, I just understand the anatomy of a child and like what goes on, and I don't have these like weird expectations for 5 and 6-year-olds, like,
right.
you know. And it's like everyone that goes to her class ends up in this like blossoming opportunity, and it's because she has stepped away from these norms of what kindergarten and first grade are supposed to look like.
What, those delusional norms?
Right.
Yeah.
The delusional
but that
norms
are set up to put us in a place where we will then follow the system and be able to be in workspaces that are professional. And
or it's like it's the cultural divide, right? It's like, here's a very narrow hallway that very few people will get through, and if you get through it in the way that we want you to get through it, you'll be successful, right? And then the people that aren't making it through that hallway are generally people like us,
right,
and they don't want us in that to get through anyways. So it's like,
but it is a training to submit to societal norms, to the point where now folks like us who maybe haven't fit through that narrow hallway, whether we wanted to or not, are still sitting here and undoing the system inside of ourselves in order to even move on to what our next, like, our purpose is meant to be.
Exactly.
Because we're so trained to be within this system, this rigid system, that it makes us feel like we need to submit to, you know.
Yeah, it's hard too. Like, even I was talking with someone and I was like, I've always had natural hair, and my mom always knew what to do with my hair. Like, I always had fly hairdos, and I could change my hair whenever I wanted, but I still always wanted to experience having blonde flowing hair, right? Even though I grew up with people looking like me, grew up natural, never had a hair struggle. I feel like a lot of like mixed race people will be like, we didn't know what to do with my hair, so it was like even more of an explosion. But it's like, I was having that mental explosion even with like my hair braided, my hair however I wanted it to be, and people always telling me they loved my hair, but I still was like, I want that like blonde flowing, I want the wind to blow and my hair to move.
I can literally remember the moment, and I don't know if I've told you this story, I feel like I probably have. When I was in 5th grade, I decided to relax my own hair because I didn't have a mom who knew what to do with my hair.
Yeah.
I wanted to relax my own hair, which, by the way, I have really, for those of you who are watching, like, you don't need to relax my hair. I can straighten it with a hot iron.
That lie.
You know, I was putting chemicals in my hair that just like were never meant to be in there. But I remember the moment after I had done it, and it looked jacked up, but in my mind, it was straight, and that's all that mattered. And I just remember sitting in front of the mirror, like the moment afterwards, and going like this, and watching my hair flow back and forth, and being like, that's what I wanted. Like, that was the movement. Like, I just
stripped her hair of everything good.
And it was like raggedy and like falling apart, and I was happy. Wow. I was happy because I was like, I just want the straight hair. That's all.
And it needs to be like, it is funny too, because now I'll cry if my hair's not big enough or thick enough or like voluminous enough. But catch me at 15 trying to put my hair under a hat in some braids or something. And I'm like, it's not flat, it's poofy, and like just struggle. And it's like,
it's horrifying, actually.
I don't even know what people not surrounded by like Black joy or brown people or like being praised for their hair go through. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I was getting all the goodness and I still wanted something different.
Yeah. I mean, I think also too, you know, we were raised in very different households. King and I, like, I was raised in a Black household, but also the indoctrination was so strong in certain ways that it would show up, and like, you know, it would show up in a perm, you know, like it would show up in all these different ways that I had to have these extraordinary things happen to me in order for me to be like, all right, I got to pause on this. And I remember I was in 8th grade and we were required to swim we were required to swim.
You're like, I can't.
But this is what happened. And you actually, if y'all came behind me in the middle school, then you would know, then there might have been a change in optional for swim. It was optional because of me. So what happened is I went to my hair started falling out because I had a perm. And I perm every day. And even though I had a cap, the chemical mixture was causing my hair to eat itself.
Exactly.
So now I'm this Black, dark-skinned person, and my hair is fucked up. And like I'm in middle school, and my struggle, like I just remember being that age and being like, oh my gosh, I'm so ugly. Like I'm so ugly because of all of these external factors that I don't have that make you beautiful in this world. And now I have to submit a doctor's note. I had to explain to the doctor. Like if I didn't have an advocate to explain to the doctor, this is really causing me harm. I can't go to the pool, and then have people second guess me. Like, you just don't want to swim. You don't, like, I'm a cancer baby. I love water, you know?
Like I would love to swim every day.
But you know, but the thought,
just not in chlorine.
Right. So what happened was, at the end of it was that they wind up having to shift that expectation, or they shift that rule where it had to be optional. I don't know if it's, I remember talking to some generations before, like a couple of years back, and they were saying, like, oh, we don't have to swim anymore.
I do remember it becoming optional.
It was definitely optional by the time I got there.
Yeah, because I remember I got my moon and I was like, I'm not putting nothing up my vagina, so I won't be swimming. And they were like, okay, fine.
Yeah. And that was like
that's wild.
I had to crawl so other people could walk.
But I do remember like my cousins and stuff being like, I can't go underwater. And I'd be like, what? And they'd be like, I'm not supposed to go underwater either because my mama just did my hair, but your hair is gonna eat itself.
Yeah,
that traumatic experience was like, fuck that. My hair is gonna be natural and full body. Yeah. And that's when I started to go into locking my hair. And I've been locking my hair ever since. So it's been like, I don't know how many years, but maybe 15 years. Yeah. I've had on again, off again locks, but my hair has always been natural because I'm like, I'm not doing this. Ever.
Yeah, I feel that.
No. I want to, do you have anything else you want to say?
I was just going to say this has been a really awesome conversation, and we've touched on a lot of different points. I feel like there's so much more to talk about.
always.
I know. It's also like catch up though. So it's like.
But that's why we did conversations, because we were like, yo, there are people in this world that we just talk to like this.
Yeah.
And what if we broadcasted that conversation so people know, like, these conversations happen?
Really I know. I'm like, our group of friends, this is super normal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for us too, it's such a big part of the work we're doing, to share different perspectives and to be able to hear from different voices. Everybody has, like you said, wildly different experiences, and everybody's experience is a different version of the truth. So I think,
but where we overlay is where we get that clarity we're all looking for, right? Like, you have these self-dialogues where you're like, am I wrong? Are they wrong? Like, what's happening here? And then you hear, someone you trust and admire kind of say similar things. You're like, oh, it's not me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not making these scenarios. I'm not gaslighting myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe you were gaslighting.
Yeah.
Right. And the thought of change making, like, people, what is that? It seems like such a big thing, but it's the act of even noticing.
Yeah.
Right. The act of noticing and then acting on that. Like, I'm noticing
even just saying
thing.
Like, I'm not going to use the term professional anymore. Like, you saying that is absolutely disrupting harmful patterns and change making right there.
Right.
That's so important.
I wanted to ask if there's anything that you could leave, like a nugget that you want people to walk away with, something that they can leave from this space, this conversation with. What would that be?
I think just like, easier said than done, but like, flow with your flow. Like, we second guess ourselves so often, but it's almost always that we're right? You might ignore your gut feeling or your initial thoughts around something, but you end up back there like 9 times out of 10. So I think trusting yourself is really important, and listening to yourself. The ancestors are always trying to talk, and we just got to listen. And you can recreate these structures. Like, I just started a nonprofit. We have no positions. We have no hierarchy. There's no boss. There's no nothing. We're just a community supporting each other. And it sounds crazy and hectic, but it actually isn't. And it's really beautiful to share that space. And it just was a matter of us trusting we could recreate what those structures look like, and doing it.
I love that.
Dope. And where can we find you?
Yeah, where can people come follow up on with you?
My website is mohdcreates.com, and on like Facebook it's mohdcreates, and then on Instagram it's mo_hd_creates 707, for the Humboldt 707. And then that's pretty much it. I'm about to be doing a couple workshops a week starting in May, I believe. And I have like a Patreon that will go up, so those resources are available to folks. And yeah, so all that information is on the internet at the places.
So gift giving. So we'll do this thing. Can I do the gift giving?
Yeah. We usually close out with the gift giving. Yeah.
So when I'm in circle with anyone and I have the opportunity to give a gift, I would say, think of a word that you would want to give somebody that would encourage them throughout their day, or that you feel like is calling to you to speak to their spirit. And it can be the word, and you can say a sentence about it if you want to, like why you're choosing that word. But when you have the word, to indicate that you have it, you ball up your hand so we know that the gift is ready to be presented to whomever you want to give it to.
Only one person. Like I can't give both of you a gift.
You got to pick one of us, then we can make it a circle.
Okay.
You'll pick one of us, and then whichever one you don't pick, we'll give. So who do you want to give your gift to?
I'm giving my gift to you, Kinga.
Okay, so I'll give to you, and then you'll give to
I'll give it to Mo.
To Mo.
My name's Mo.
I totally just said DW.
Well, hold on, let me give a moment to give my gift.
Okay, I'm first? Okay, Kinga, I'm giving you stretch. And I don't mean in the way to fill spaces. I mean in the way to take care of your body and feel good and loose and limber.
I love that, and I need that. So thank you. DW, I'm giving you joy and laughter. I know it's two, but I just want you to find lots of laughter and joy and be happy and be able to get your giggles out, like your child self. Activate your inner child.
Oh, thank you. So sweet. Mo, I'm giving you ease, because I want you to be able to sit in easiness in the spaces that you're in, and just remember that it's easy. It can be as easy as you need it to be.
Thank you. I needed that.
Right. And so we didn't do this last time, so I want to do it.
Go.
The saying of remembering that when we're doing this work of change making, when we're moving in the world, that you can do it, you belong, and you're most definitely enough.
Yeah.